Hey, I'm at Stahl's Automotive Collection here in Michigan. I've done a couple of videos at car shows where they show up. Last one was they had the Chrysler turbine car. So I'm not going to show you the inside. If you want to see the inside, go ahead and look up Stahl's Automotive Collection in Chesterfield Township, Michigan. They don't have hours every day. It's only like basically days a week. But they have a fantastic collection, and I want to appreciate them for hosting this. This is the Orphan Car Show. So out in Ypsilanti, Michigan, they used to host a similar event that was very well attended. And that was hosted, Ypsilanti has the last Hudson dealer located there. It's a museum. And so they kind of use that as the focal point for the organization of that car show. Then COVID hit, you know what happened, and it kind of never came back. So Stahl said, you know what, I think we're missing an opportunity here to get some people to come to our museum and give them a chance to kind of like re-spark that, because it was fantastic. And what it means by Orphan Car Show is some of these brands no longer exist, and some of these brands, they exist, but when the vehicle was made, it was under a different corporation. So, for example, this is not a Jeep, but this is a Willys. So this is a 1955 Willys pickup. Willys Overland, Kaiser Jeep. Jeep was part of AMC. Now it's part of Chrysler. Now it's part of Stellantis. Anyway, but this is an example of that. This is a very cool kind of a resto mod. So first of all, if I keep it up, we're going to see this logo, this W logo again later on. This truck is perfect. And the reason I say a resto mod, it's, you know, got a lot of modern amenities, but also you can see like the trail rated badge from a newer Jeep, huge tires, and very nice interior. And obviously retaining some of the controls out of necessity, but some modern conveniences as well. So fantastic pickup. And next to that is a 1950 DeSoto. So DeSoto was a brand of the Chrysler Corporation, and you'll see various. I want to show you inside. I'm trying not to. They're doing an interview over there, so I will respect them. But you can see here, you'll see the head of the Explorer DeSoto throughout the interior, and a really cool hood ornament I'll show you in a minute. But the interior has completely been restored. And the thing I like is all the memorabilia that they have. So with all the new technologies coming out in vehicles in the 1950s, you can see the Chrysler V8 engine distributor, how to work on the regulator generator for these vehicles. It looks like they were basically cartoon books that they put together for the mechanics, because I guess they figured mechanics, if you put a big, thick 500-page shop manual in front of them, they'll be like, no way. But if you put a comic book in front of them, I guess they're like, yeah, sure, I'll read it on my lunch break. What else am I going to do? I don't have a smartphone. There's no internet. So anyway, I will zoom in, like I said here. Let me just take a quick look and then I'll get out of their way. It's kind of the skull of DeSoto, if you will. So pretty sweet. A Plymouth, yet another brand of that Chrysler did away with. Yeah, obviously this one lasted until, through the 80s, but I don't know how much longer it lasted after that. So it's a 1952. And next to that is a 1955 Plymouth Belvedere. One of my favorite things always to do with a still camera was just take pictures of the chrome work, the badging. There's a lot of companies, not a lot, but a very few number of companies who do amazing work reproducing and replating the different chrome emblems. Yeah, this one is a stunning two-tone. You can see the red and black. So I dig that one. Mercury, another brand that maybe lasted into the 2000s, early 2000s, perhaps. Anyway, this one is a early one in 1947, so just post-war. But at this point, a lot of the styling and details were going to be carryover from pre-war. It wasn't until like 1950s, and I've seen some custom hot rods made out of like 50 Merc, or so early 50s. This one was before that, but you could still see all the Art Deco style experience, style influence on these front ends. They hadn't yet embraced the jet age with tail fins and turbine-looking accents on the cars. Another Belvedere, another DeSoto, and they're about to come out with the award ceremony. Let's just take a quick peek in here. This is a 1947 DeSoto. Oh, and I forgot to point out, fluid drive. So you would expect fluid drive. My first thing was like, oh, it must be an early automatic. That's cool. But no, it still has 3 pedals. I guess I would describe it as rather than a physical clutch, it's a hydraulic clutch, but still it's a manual transmission. So presumably it was an easier driving experience, but it wasn't an automatic transmission, not yet. So kind of a misleading name, but well, back then there weren't as many trial lawyers. Here's another, take a look at the fantastic And I mentioned the Willis Jeep earlier. That was that custom resto mod. We saw that light blue Jeep pickup, but it was a Willis brand. This is a 1953 Willis Aero Eagle, which I didn't know they actually got into the car business, but apparently they did. This is a cute little two-door. So in the early 50s, even through the late 50s, if I hurry up, there's a guy with a Metropolitan, so a Nash Metropolitan or American Motors out in the back, which is a very tiny car. And there were some tiny cars because, not everybody could afford a big vehicle. I'm guessing the W logo on the front was chrome, but they put like a wrap over it because it just seems too expressive for the 1950s. Standing out too much. But you can see starting to embrace the jet age. Willis was a brand and a manufacturer based out of Toledo, Ohio. The Jeep plant is still there. They leveled the old Jeep plant, but you can still see as you drive by where it was, they kept one of the towers up, so it says Overland on it from one of the power plants, I guess. Super cool interior. All right, where should we head next? How about, I'm going to take you over to this Pacer, so American Motors, and there's a good documentary. It's free on YouTube, which I'm broadcasting live on right now. It's called AMC, the Last Independent Automaker. I think it's a 7-part series. It's quite entertaining. There's the early 50s stuff. We'll talk about like with the Nash and Studebaker. Look at the interior here. Groovy. So this is a later one. This is a 1977. Wonderful condition. Look at this. You got the fake wood paneling. It's kind of if you want to call it a 2-door hatchback or a 2-door station wagon. I knew people who had Pintos that were, I think they saw, the Pacer was actually pretty popular when it first came out. It kind of took the market by storm a little bit. It was definitely a different looking vehicle. That and the Gremlin, also from AMC. So they're a company that wasn't afraid to take risks. And this is just a perfect example of one. Pontiac is sadly another orphan brand. This is a car I'm more familiar with. What year is this? 89? 87? 87 Pontiac Fiero. This is the GT. So if you remember earlier ones, they had more of a notchback. This is the GT, the fastback. And the earlier ones had the 4-cylinder Iron Duke engine, which liked to catch on fire. This one didn't. This one had a 2.8 liter V6. And a couple of years ago, I went to a car show.
There was one for sale.
Where they, it was for the Fiero's, what would it be? 40th anniversary? Whatever it was, 20, yeah, it must have been 40th anniversary of the Fiero. And that one, there were so many different engine swaps of that vehicle. You had North Star V8 engine swaps. People like to do that. You could put a GM 3800 V6, which is a really dependable engine. And if you put a 3800 V6, you can put the supercharged 3800 V6. It's just a wild list of, and of course, small block Chevy V8s, LS swaps, and LT engine swaps. So here's a not necessarily an orphaned brand. Opel exists, but this is an orphan car, I guess you could say, in North America. GM owned Opel at the time. I think these were sold in Pontiac dealers. This is a 72, and it was meant to fight off competition from Fiat, Volkswagen, all the small, fuel-efficient European cars coming over, and of course the fuel-efficient, small, and affordable Japanese cars. So I talked about engine swaps of the Fiero, but now I'm going to show you this DeLorean, and you might know where this is headed. Dun, 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 dun. Yes, an LS swapped DeLorean. And I just did a video, if you want to look it up, on a DeLorean limousine that showed up at the Woodward Dream Cruise. He did an electric conversion kit. That's another kind of a niche area, but a couple of people have done it, so they have designs that work. This one, it's longitudinally mounted, not transverse, but it still is in the rear engine position, so it's behind the wheels. That electric conversion kind of does something different, where they put a Tesla Model 3 performance motor in line with the axles, of course, and then the battery would take that place. One of the batteries, they do one in the back, one in the front for good range. That limousine that I saw only had one battery, so kind of crazy. But there's some Plymouths I want to show you up here, because I know everybody's dying to see Plymouth. Yet another Chrysler brand that did not make it. And that one, if you remember, the Plymouth Prowler, that two-door, often they were purple in color, trying to look like a hot rod, but like a modern version of it. The Plymouth Prowler started off selling under the Plymouth brand, but the last year, I believe it was sold as a Chrysler. Yes, because the Chrysler 100th anniversary, that was mentioned. Here's a Plymouth Volare, which the owner found this one. It's literally a barn find, but in wonderful condition. And the color I can only describe as like a muted tan that carries over nicely into the interior. This is a 1980, not as psychedelic or funkalicious as that Pacer. Plymouth is a little more mature brand, so this was a more subdued striped suit interior. I can only imagine. It doesn't look like it would be the most refreshing material to sit on a hot summer day. We had some rain this morning, so I think some people did no show, but it dried up and it's pretty nice right now. There are some Chrysler vehicles as well, and I think that's not because they're an orphan brand, although They're getting awfully close to an orphan brand. Chrysler has basically one vehicle left, the Chrysler 300, although their brand CEO is saying that they are coming out with more. Holding my breath on that, so hopefully it does. It's a 1964 Chrysler 300, and Pontiac, though, is a brand that went away. This is a GTO with looks like 3 two-barrel carburetors on it. What engine would that be? It'd be like a 427 maybe. This might swing back later. I talked about that Plymouth Valiant. We had one growing up, similar color brown, but we had an earlier version than that. That one's newer than the one I had growing up. Got some Fiats. It's a Oldsmobile Tornado coming up on. So this was these were considered super stylish. The Tornado and the Buick Riviera and the Cadillac Eldorado, big two-door executive cars, because that's what you rolled around with when you were a high-flying executive. And these were front-wheel drive, and very cool. You can see, I'll sneak in a little bit here. Obviously, they pop-up headlights. You can see them underneath. And this is a 1966. So this is before some of the emission standards came in and kind of sucked the power out of them. I also want to show you this car. This is a Citroën Ami. Look how tiny, skinny the tires are. And the exhaust pipe. The exhaust pipe on this thing looks like it doesn't put out a lot of exhaust. I guess I'll just put it that way. But the really cool thing about this is the 1969, is the French styling of this. So Citroën is this brand that still exists, but in America, not so much. Kind of looks like he's been skiing on lemon front, or just a angry Frenchman. The distinctive part of the Ami, though, is the back glass here. You can see that wasn't for aero, it was to be different. It seems like French styling in general, I would just describe in cars anyway, is like, why did they do it that way? To be different. Why, for example, is it a one-spoke steering wheel? You can see that white thing is the one spoke that holds it on. Why'd they do that? To be different. So I talked to the owner of this car earlier, and I'd like to thank him. And I didn't do this for the other video I made. So here's an American Motors Metropolitan. Now, interesting on this one is, like, I thought these were Nash Metropolitans, and they were, but there were two brands. So it started off as a Nash Metropolitan, and then later they said, you know what? Nash is going to do those, as well as Studebaker. Studebaker merged in to form American Motors. So this one is technically a 1959 American Motors Metropolitan, and you could get this from Nash or Studebaker dealerships. And super cool. It's just technically it is more than a two-seater. I didn't know that, but when you put the top down, there's no room for guests. So if you've got company in it, you can't put the top down. It's just for you and your partner. But just very simple controls. I did kind of a run-through of a car show that had a lot of micro cars. And, early 50s, Europe and particularly Japan were just devastated, so they had no choice but to be frugal in how much and how big they made vehicles. America didn't have that problem, but that doesn't mean there wasn't a market for small vehicles. You can see here just that's the shifter. So this is a manual transmission. The parking brake is on the floor, and all you need is speedometer and fuel. So just about as simple as you could be, but a really fun, affordable vehicle. I think we need more vehicles that are fun and affordable, especially the affordable part. It's another, this is a big Packard. So this would have been one of the last Packards, 56. I believe 57, if I recall correctly, is the last year that Packard existed. Packard tried to pull off a merger, but it was unsuccessful. So to save the brand, this one would have been built likely at the Packard plant in Detroit, which for years stood as kind of a sign of urban decay. But as it turned out, they've been tearing that down every few years. So there's not much of it left, but a beautiful vehicle. Excellent. You see the just like that metal work for the dash, picking up the colors. Back in the 50s and even in the 60s, interior colors and exterior colors, it was okay to merge them together. I should have said with the Nash Metropolitan is Nash and Hudson merged together. Packard and Studebaker were the ones who tried to get along. Nash and Hudson formed American Motors, and then later you get cars like this AMX, American Motors AMX. This has the 360 cubic inch V8. And this one, I'll have to get the year of it. It's early 70s, but in that time frame, early 70s, especially, you saw Camaro had a complete remake, so their Gen 2, and it was very long and low. And Mustang modified the body, did a very extensive refresh, and it got bigger and thicker and longer. And the AMX was kind of by comparison, just a tremendously short wheelbase muscle car. This is a 70s, so emission standards really didn't start impacting the power output very much on these. So this one would still be kind of in the glory years of muscle cars. They've had some upgrades to it to make it run a little bit better. And if I haven't mentioned, there's a American Motors, The Last Great Independent video available on YouTube. So just go look that up. It's like a 7-part series, but I found it very entertaining. Automatic transmission, only 2-seater. I don't know if there was space for a 2 more seats in the back. I might get some pierogi before I head back home. But 2 more cars I want to point out. Studebaker, I mentioned, they tried to pull off a merger with Packard that was short-lived and couldn't save either brand. Both of them were kind of very, exclusive brands, very high-style brands. So I think it was a good fit between the two of them. This is a Studebaker Golden Hawk. It's a 1957, and it's just gushing with style. Kind of like that Chrysler Imperial I showed you earlier. And it is a gold color, kind of a dark gold, maybe bronze in some degree. If that's a bright gold, you can see kind of the difference in colors. Fabulous interior. And starting to also integrate fins in the back, as most cars were apt to do during this time period. So Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Oh, one last car. One last car. Hudson. Yeah, I talked about them earlier. So Hudson, you remember the Hudson Hornet from Cars the movie? Yeah, they really were, like, for about 2 years, just unbeatable in NASCAR. And there's a different governing body too, like it is like AA Racing or something like that. But we'll just say NASCAR. The Hudson Hornet was dominant. It had a inline six, the twin H-Power, basically a dual carburetor setup here, you could see, in inline six. Now this one has had some more modifications to it to give it a little bit even more kick. And yet another brand that we've lost, but that doesn't mean we can't appreciate the cars. Thanks for watching.